In the world of Formula One, few stories blur the line between sport, justice, and history like this one. It's the story of Felipe Massa, a driver who came within 1 point, 1 corner, 1 heartbeat of glory, and who, years later, is still fighting to reclaim what he believes was rightfully his. This isn't just about racing anymore. It's about truth, accountability, and the question that has shaken the foundations of Formula One. Can a world championship be rewritten? It was the 2008 Formula One season, one of the most dramatic, intense, and controversial years in modern motorsport. The championship fight was between Ferrari's Felipe Massa, the Brazilian hero, and McLaren's young star, Lewis Hamilton. The season was a thriller. Unpredictable races, unpredictable weather, and 2 drivers pushing each other to the edge. Every lap mattered. Every point mattered. By the time the final race came around, it was Hamilton leading by just 7 points. Massa needed a miracle. But before the world turned its eyes to Brazil, something strange had already happened months earlier, under the bright lights of Singapore. It was the first night race in Formula One history. The spectacle was breathtaking, a glowing circuit wrapped in city lights, cameras flashing, the future of the sport on full display. But beneath the surface, something darker was unfolding. On lap 14, Nelson Piquet Jr., driving for Renault, suddenly crashed his car into the wall at turn 17. To most viewers, it looked like a driver's mistake, but it wasn't. The crash was deliberate, ordered by his team bosses Flavio Briatore and Pat Simons. Their plan? Create a safety car situation that would hand the advantage to Fernando Alonso, who had pitted moments before. The crash changed everything. The safety car shuffled the race order completely. At that exact moment, Felipe Massa was in the lead. Ferrari called him into the pits for fuel, but the pit stop turned into a disaster. The team released Massa too early, the fuel hose still attached to his car. He dragged it down the pit lane, sparks flying, fuel spilling, mechanics diving out of the way. It was chaos. He was forced to stop at the end of the lane, losing precious seconds, and received a drive-through penalty. From the front of the grid, he fell to 13th, out of the points completely. He didn't know it yet, but that moment, a single pit stop gone wrong, would change the course of his career, and perhaps the course of Formula One history. At the end of the season, it all came down to Brazil. Massa was perfect that day. He did everything right. He crossed the finish line in front of his home crowd as the winner. For 38 seconds, he was the world champion. The Ferrari garage erupted. His family cried tears of joy. But in those final seconds, somewhere down the track, Lewis Hamilton overtook Timo Glock's slowing Toyota to finish 5th, just enough to clinch the championship by a single point. The world celebrated Hamilton's triumph. Massa's Heartbreak became legend, one of the greatest title deciders in F1 history, decided in the final corner on the final lap by a single point. A year later, the scandal known as crashgate broke. Piquet confessed that his crash in Singapore had been deliberate, ordered by his own team. Renault was punished. Briatore and Simons were banned from the sport. But the FIA made one thing clear: the race results would stand. The reasoning? Championships are final once the season ends. No exceptions, no rewrites. Massa, devastated but powerless, moved on, or at least tried to. For more than a decade, the story faded. But then, in 2023, an old voice resurfaced, one that brought everything back. In an interview, former F1 boss Bernie Ecclestone admitted something shocking. He said he and then FIA President Max Mosley knew about the deliberate crash during the 2008 season, but chose not to act, fearing the sport's reputation would suffer. That confession changed everything. For Felipe Massa, it was the missing piece. Proof, he said, that the truth had been buried to protect the sport. His lawyers filed a lawsuit in London's High Court against the FIA, Formula One management, and Bernie Ecclestone himself. The claim was simple but explosive, that by failing to act on information they already had, the governing bodies had robbed him of his rightful world championship. The lawsuit seeks roughly $82 million in damages, the estimated loss of earnings, sponsorship deals, and career opportunities that Massa would have gained as a world champion. But the money isn't the point, it's the principle. Massa's legal team argues that the FIA breached its own rules that require immediate investigation into any incident that could affect the integrity of the sport. And by failing to do that, they say, the organization failed not only Massa but every competitor on the grid. The defense, of course, tells a different story. The FIA and FOM's lawyers have argued that the case is time-barred, that it's simply too late to challenge results from 2008. They insist that sporting results must remain final. To reopen them, they say, would destroy the stability of every sport. Imagine if every old championship, every controversial referee call, every disputed race could be dragged back into court decades later. Where would it end? But Massa's lawyers counter that argument with one word: fraud. They say that when fraud or concealment is involved, time limits don't apply. And that's exactly what they claim happened here: a deliberate concealment of the truth by those in power. In late 2025, the case finally reached the courtroom. Over 3 tense days in London, both sides presented their arguments. Massa's lawyers described a betrayal of trust, a sport choosing silence over honesty. The defense fired back, warning that a ruling in Massa's favor would open Pandora's box for global sports law. Reporters packed the courtroom. Fans around the world followed every update. When the hearing ended, the judge reserved judgment, meaning the decision on whether the case goes to a full trial is still pending. If it does move forward, it could change everything. A full trial would require disclosure of internal FIA communications, private memos, and potentially even emails from 2008 and 2009. Documents that could reveal who knew what and when. For Formula One, that would be an earthquake. It's important to remember, Lewis Hamilton is not part of this case. Massa has repeatedly said his fight is not with Hamilton, but with the governing bodies who failed him. Still, the implications are huge. If Massa wins, the 2008 championship could, in theory, be reassigned, a world title, rewritten 15 years after the fact. The case has divided the F1 community. Some fans believe it's time to correct an injustice. Others say the past should stay in the past, that rewriting history would set a dangerous precedent. But for Felipe Massa, this fight isn't about changing the record books alone. It's about restoring faith in himself, in the sport, and in the principle that no one, not even Formula One's most powerful figures, should be above accountability. He has said, "This isn't just for me, it's for the sport I love." And that's what makes this story powerful. It's not about revenge, it's about respect. Now, as the motorsport world waits for the court's decision, the stakes couldn't be higher. If the judge allows the case to go to trial, it could expose truths F1 has tried to forget. But if it's dismissed, it will reinforce the long-standing rule: when the flag falls and the trophies are handed out, history is final, even if it isn't fair. 15 years later, Felipe Massa's race isn't over. It's just on a different circuit, one made of legal arguments and old secrets instead of asphalt and corners. But the goal remains the same: to cross the finish line as a world champion. And for fans watching this unfold, this isn't just about Formula One. It's about justice, legacy, and how far someone will go to right a wrong that the world once forgot. Because in the end, the past doesn't always stay buried. Sometimes it fights its way back to the surface, one truth at a time. If you're fascinated by the hidden stories of Formula One, the politics, the scandals, the legends behind the helmets, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. This story isn't over, and when the next chapter drops, you won't want to miss it, because sometimes the biggest races aren't won on track. They're won in the fight for truth.